Hi everyone, I'm so happy that you're here to join me for the Way of the Animal podcast. Welcome back, Alastair. Today's podcast topic
is talking.
is talking apparently is I thought about advocacy and like self-advocacy, so advocating for yourself, and I don't know, there's lots of different thoughts that have come through with this to me, and I think when I said it to you, you had some tangents to go through. So.
The topic brings lots of thoughts to my head.
Excellent. Do you want to start with one of your thoughts?
Sure. It's one of those difficult things because, and I think we've mentioned it before, sometimes advocating for yourself comes off as what to yourself feels a bit selfish, a bit like, it's hard to say, oh, I need this, or I want this, or I don't like that, because, well, then other people are putting themselves out for me. And I think it was in the people-pleasing one.
Yeah. I get that. And it's interesting what's come up for me was remembering reading someone's sort of post about he's a portrait photographer.
Okay.
And he said he always felt like he was a burden. So then asking someone in the street, they're like, oh, can I take your picture?
Yeah.
Always felt like he was a burden. It was a really interesting way of feeling like a burden, but feeling like that was a burden on someone, whereas actually quite often that's a blessing.
Yes.
So it's like, for me, it was advocating for yourself and that sort of side of things. And it's sort of, standing up for yourself and your own needs. And then when you feel like you're a burden on other people, how you won't advocate, because of that. Just, I don't know, that was an interesting twist that came up for me.
It is, and it's funny that you bring it up because at kickboxing we were talking about it, because Nicole switched us up partners, because usually you and I box together, and she switched us up with other people. But then the next class I was at, you weren't feeling great, so you weren't at it. She was worried that was, maybe you didn't like that or anything like that. And I was like, oh, no, it's fine, because Janet will advocate for herself. And I think, I don't know, is it as you get older, do you get better at advocating for yourself?
Yeah, and it's a bit like this, the people-pleasing thing, isn't it? It's the same thing. Or authenticity, it's, you get to a stage where you're like, well...
I don't care anymore.
Yeah. You know what? I'm too old to be pattering around and not saying what I need,
That's it.
Yeah, and I mean, to go into that a little bit more, I mean, it's interesting for me that when I thought about that, would I have advocated for myself in that situation? And I think if I really needed to, I probably would have done. Mm-hmm. But I also have this thing where, because it was like, she knows, our coach knows that I get anxious about like changes and things like that. That can sort of trigger me sometimes. And that quite often I won't let anxiety get in my way.
Yes.
So therefore, I don't necessarily need to advocate for myself, because I'm like, no, I'm just going to do it because this is good. And
also with something like that, learning a new skill, pushing outside of the comfort zone is very important.
Yeah, exactly. So, it was an interesting thought that came through when I was thinking about, would I have? And then it's like, if I really need to, yes. So, some days you don't feel as good as others. Yeah. So if one of those days where I was just kind of struggling a bit, but I turned up to class because I know it helps and I enjoy it. If I'd needed it to not change that night, I would have said, I'm sorry, I can't cope. Like I've come to the stage, like you said, where I'm not so afraid to speak up for myself. But that's not always true in every situation.
It's not. I think a lot of the times the fear of not advocating for yourself and not speaking up for yourself comes down to worrying about the perception of others. And, if I say I don't want to do that, then how is everyone else going to look at me? What are they going to think about me? And
I think the interesting thing about that is actually when you sort of advocate, you stand up for yourself and your needs, how much it encourages other people to do the same.
100%.
I think it stops people from hiding their needs and not speaking up for themselves because they see someone else do it. And then you'll quite often find, I mean, I can't think of an example situation off the top of my head, but if you say, you know, actually, I'm not quite comfortable with this, you'll find there's this ripple effect of, me too, me too.
Exactly. Definitely.
So I think, you know, it takes a lot of strength to do in a way. But it's so important because it allows other people to see, you know, that it can be done.
Definitely. And I think there's two places my head goes in this. So I'll take one tangent first. Is I don't know, do you call it over advocating for yourself? The constant, no, I don't like that. No, not like that. No, not like the trying to.
I think so. What do you like? Is that sort of when people have become so controlling?
It's not even the controlling. The controlling is definitely another part of it. But what I was actually more thinking of was just the, you know, oh, can you do? No, I can't. Nope, don't feel comfortable doing that. Nope, can you do? No, and just that not realizing that not everything in life is exactly how you would like it to be and in your comfort zone. And then just, you know, advocating for yourself can become a bit of a problem when you're constantly...
Is it a problem though?
Well, I think it is, because I think it has a negative effect on those around you. So let's say you 100% advocate. It comes back to what we were talking about we've talked about this before, about sort of selfishness with, if I don't care about the rest of you. We talked about it in the people pleasing one. That's where it was. If I'm just advocating for myself, then I'm perhaps putting people out because they have to then bend to my will. So I'm thinking more of compromise.
Yeah, it's
like look at a marriage.
But yeah, okay, yeah, I see where you're coming from, because I was gonna say, you know, it's really interesting because we do have this thing where you know, if you feel like you're always saying no, you feel like you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
But perhaps that's just the situation that you've surrounded yourself with that is completely not right for you. So therefore you are always saying no because it's not right in the first place.
I suppose what I'm kind of thinking of is places where you have to collaborate with other people, like a marriage, like a workplace, like a game, like a training class, anything like that. There are points that will have to favor other people over yourself, and advocating for yourself there isn't appropriate. Isn't like, you know, you have to have compromises how we all get along.
It's really interesting because I have great resistance to what you're saying there.
I can feel your resistance too.
Because I think it's how people end up feeling guilted into something where they wish they'd said no.
Yeah,
because
that's true.
they feel and like.
So yeah, it can definitely go the other way as well.
Like, I understand there's a balance, and I understand that you can't keep saying no. You know, it's like I know, a stupid one. It's like if you said, "Will you mind doing the dishes tonight?" No, you know, and I just kept saying, "I don't want to do the dishes tonight, but I'm going to keep saying no." Whereas this is a really silly thing, but we both hate doing the dishes. It's just a really stupid thing, but it's. The fact that I could keep saying no to advocate for myself because I don't want to do them. But that means you're doing the dishes all the time and you'd want to say no to, and
so there's the compromise.
Therefore we compromise and we share it. So I get that. But I also feel in some situations that peer pressure, you know, or that sort of societal pressure to do things, especially like workplace things, that
workplace
can
be
really
real bad.
Messy.
And it makes me think of
and it gets into like a safety thing. If you're not comfortable doing what you're doing, like I'm thinking, you know, farm ranch work, and for me operating machinery is outside my comfort zone. I will, however, if someone takes the time to show me how to do it, I will take my time and I'll do it. But if someone said to me, there's that machine you've never driven before. Get in there, figure it out, and go and do something. That's like, no. But I will not say no if someone's telling me to do it, who I feel is in more an authority figure. So that's that authority thing gets in there. So it's
it really does. It's very difficult. And
interesting matter.
The one in the workplace that it made me think of is it became a big headlines thing in the games industry. People, game developers and things, having this crunch week or crunch month before the game comes out, where they're trying to hit a deadline, which realistically, let's face it, is unrealistic for them to be able to meet. So they're pulling these long days, overtimes, no one's getting break, they're being really hard on their staff because they're just trying to hit this deadline. And the staff, the game comes out and then the staff all complain about how awful it was the month leading up to it and how badly they were treated. And so they're not advocating for themselves. And it's gone too far the other way. But on a smaller one, it's like kickboxing. When I was partnered with someone else he's a higher skill level than me. He's been doing it longer and done different martial arts and things. So his pad holding, everything was just a little bit sharper, just that bit better than what I was doing. So I was the weaker of the two, which meant that he had to go to my capabilities. Now he's at the class to learn and to train and everything like that. So what would be better for him is to be at someone with a slightly higher skill level than him. So it was great for me, wasn't as good for him, to advocate for himself, to say, well, no, actually, I want to go with someone else. That's not really in the spirit of things, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like that's a time where advocating for yourself would be inappropriate.
What there?
There. Whereas in the workplace, when you're being bullied into stuff at work, then maybe it's appropriate.
It's really interesting, and it's like to take it down another road, because something that's come up there is advocating for others, and especially advocating for your animals.
Yeah.
Is that I was talking about it a little bit with the authority figure. So you've got someone higher up in your work telling you have to do this and you have to do this, and you don't really want to do that because it feels like you're not prepared for that, or it's not. It's like out with your abilities. Is that thing we can do with, and you can see it happening to other people, and you can see it happening with your animals, is that as guardians of animals especially, we have this thing is like the vets know better, the trainers know better. Yeah. And even when we have that niggling feeling inside, this isn't right, and we should advocate for our animals because it doesn't feel like what we're being told or taught or the treatment or whatever it is, is not, doesn't feel right to us. We don't always stand up because we give our power away. It's like, no, these people must know what they're talking about. And I've seen it with, especially like trainers. Yes. Because there's different ways of training and going. I mean, there's horses, dogs. That's the sort of things that I know a bit about. And I've seen, people who have just blindly followed and not questioned, even when it's not felt right. And then there's I made a mistake. And
here's the thing with training and teaching in any form. People learn differently, different speeds, have different affinities, can cope with different levels of pressure. Like there's a whole range in people. Well, there's a whole range in animals too. Yeah. So there can be, this method works really well for 80%. Okay, well, that's great. But if you're in that 20%, it doesn't work for you or your animal.
Well, and
I think being aware of that is
every
important.
Animal's different. And I think it's like even just, this situation's no good. I'm leaving now. And it's just it's almost like that bravery to just, even though like maybe you've paid a fortune to get, there's always like something in the back of your mind. There's some logical thing where you're going, well, I've paid all this money for this expensive whatever that we're doing. And then realizing that it's just not right. You can feel it's not right and your animal is clearly struggling. And you just, it's that, like, that can be hard too. Because there's that pressure. And also it always looks like no one else is struggling. And then it's that thing, if you actually speak to the other people, you find that, I don't really like it either. You know, it's
Yeah.
really interesting.
It is. And at that point, and that's the thing, if you're a parent or it's a pet or something like that, advocating for whoever you're guardian of, that becomes more of a responsibility than
Yeah.
And
And still people won't do it.
I see it a lot when we were working a lot with our working collies, because almost all of our working collies, if you asked them to, they would work themselves until it killed them.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you could just keep saying, no, I need you to keep going. No, I need you to keep going. And they'd be, okay. And they would just keep going until they broke. So you've got a huge responsibility, and especially in a sort of intense work situation.
And it's a pressured environment. We were contracting for other people.
Pressure,
you need
to get the job done.
The dog
Yep.
job. The job
That's
done.
it.
Yeah.
And there are times that it's like, okay, I know that my dog's kind of done, but I just need him to give it a little bit extra for this little bit, and I'm going to push him. And then you need to be aware of no, he's really done now, and we're not going to, nope, I'm stopping. And regardless of if you're contracting, trying to help someone get something done, and it has to get, sorry, my dog's no good. I can go, but my dog can't.
You know, it was always a good judge of character, and honestly, everyone we worked for, like, no, you take care of your dog. So it's like, we quite often use radios, or it was more like walkie-talkie radios, which people might not understand what they are. So the younger generation, two-way radios. Thank you. Was, you know, I'm just going to have to pull out, like, we'd communicate it. I'm going to have to pull out, my dog's too hot. I need to take it back to water and get it cooled off and get it a good drink, because that was the thing, like, the collies just wouldn't stop.
No.
And it's why we always had so many dogs, is if you took 2 or 3 out the hill, if one was getting hot and tired, you could rest it, make sure it gets its water.
Well, someone else could be working.
The other thing is, quite often, collies as well are bad if they've hurt themselves, so they're you can see they're running lame.
They'll just keep running.
Right. So quite often you'd have to pull them up and just be like, no, you'll just have to walk off the hill with me now, as long as they weren't, you know, really bad. It's a interesting.
So that's advocating for others.
Yeah. And
here's a good advocating for others that just sprung to me.
Mm-hmm.
Back to kickboxing. And when our coach went away for some training, and they had someone in the group that was going a little bit too hard and was injuring people. And in my opinion, the other coach who was leading the class should have been advocating for the other people and should have been seeing and saying, no, stop doing that. You know, that's again advocating for others. It's not.
They need to be aware.
Advocate for yourself, definitely.
Yeah.
But you need to advocate for those people that you're responsible for as well.
And it's really funny, like, because, you know, I have done some training with other people, and like, they kick really hard. You know, the kicks are quite often, when you're holding the pads, they're the ones that you'll feel the most. And, you know, I've had to say, could you dial that down? But there's that weird thing, like, by saying that, I felt like I was taking something away from their training.
From their experience, yeah.
But actually, you know what? Being able to control the power of your kicks is actually, you know, so it's like, it's just feeling a bit like you're a burden, you're ruining someone's experience. You don't have to go all out to train. It's like you say, it's a different style of training, going gently. But sometimes it's nice to go hard. Yeah.
And that's advocating for yourself, advocating for others. Like, it's an important part of life, and it's something I think people struggle with. Although, I'll bet you 10, 15 years ago, people were worse at advocating for themselves in the workplace. Whereas now, from what I hear, I think people are better.
I think it depends what the trend is in the workplace. I
think the trend's actually going the other way, and it's not willing to do the difficult task.
I think, I mean, since COVID and, you know, the way work has changed and people's perception on work, and for some people it stayed the same, but for other people they've realised, you know, I think it's changed a lot of the dynamics in those situations.
Thinking back to the working the dogs on the hill, we're that point where the dog's like knackered. You're like, well, just this one last, I really need you to just dig deep and do this one last bit. Now, the dog advocating for itself could be like, no. Yeah. But not that the dogs can think this far ahead, but the dog could maybe understand that, okay, we've got to get this job finished. This is the last push we need to do. Okay, I need to go through a bit of discomfort to get this done, and then we can do it. And that's where, not advocating for yourself and that compromise of comes into it.
It's really, really interesting. It's, it gets into that sort of looking after yourself side of things, and how we have that habit of putting other people first.
Oh, yes.
And then it's again that airplane analogy. You put the
mask on
yourself first. And in many situations, we have a habit of trying to dictate other people's needs and advocate for their needs before our own,
That's it. Or put our needs aside because someone has asked us to do something.
I think it's like really hard. It must be really hard if you have kids, and it's like, I find it's hard. It's the same with having animals in your life, is, if they're not quite right, or, well, just, you don't feel great, but they still need what they need. You'll put yourself out to do it, but it's like you said, there's that compromise. There's that at some stage you need to advocate that you need something.
And I think, especially when you look at relationships and work and things like that, it's that compromise. Yeah. If that balance is sometimes I'm advocating for myself, sometimes I'm not advocating for myself to get the job done. Like that's a good place to be, because it's a compromise. It's a partnership. Whereas if it's either all of one or all of the other, then there's something not right, and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like, I think that resistance to that, earlier we were talking about just, not to the compromise, was just that if there's people who never advocate for themselves, then it's the balance.
It can go both ways, and it's navigating that road, and the responsibility lies with both parties.
Yeah.
To make sure that the other one is being advocated for at some point.
It comes back to, again, it's always like we talk about the awareness.
Yes.
If something is easier for you to do than it is for someone else because of whether it's skill level or just like how they're feeling, then you do that, and that allows them to do something else, and that's kind of, it's a weird way of coming at it, but it's just like understanding the, everyone's, it's like just having it's just having that greater connection and awareness to everyone around you, and understanding.
I myself, I struggle with advocating for myself, especially at work.
Well, this is why this topic came up.
Because I'm very much can you do this? Yep, no problem. I will make sure it gets done.
Yeah.
And but I see that as my responsibility and part of the agreement, the unwritten agreement that I'm in as being an employee. Yeah. That if it's within my power, I'll do it. Yeah. However, we had a night last week that things were not through anyone's fault, not through any of our fault, was going on and getting later and later and later, and it was going to be a late night finish. But there was lots of people there, and we were meant to be going out. And I said, look, I'm meant to be going out. And someone said, well, you can go out. We can handle this. Okay, you're sure you can handle it? Okay, that's fine then. Now, I could have easily just not said anything, sent you a message saying, we're not going out tonight. Yeah. And worked till 8, 9 o'clock at night. Which,
honestly, it was a bit of a surprise to me, because quite often you'll do that. So but usually quite often you'll do it because there is only you and one other person, and you can't just leave them to it.
I spoke to my manager the next morning, and I was like, I really appreciate you guys taking that. He said, well, it's fine. You've got plans, and this was not meant to be happening like this. And there was a whole load of us there. So if I was on my own, I would be more upset at you saying I'm going now.
Yeah, but it's quite the challenge and quite the balance, and
and it takes a lot of, like you say, awareness on both parties, because especially in a workplace or even in a marriage environment, your friendship or something like that like it takes a lot for me to stand up and say, actually, this is what I was wanting. Yeah. And it takes a lot for the other one to realize that, I'm not getting what I want, but he rarely gets what he wants. Okay, that's, you need to have that, because it'd be very easy to just go, well, no.
It's like with the dishes. Like,
Yeah.
I've done the dishes every night this week. Can you maybe do it tonight?
Exactly. That's it. Yeah.
Dishes is a silly one, and
It's a silly one, but it's a perfect
really
example.
interesting quote. Is like, if you feel like your chores are chores, then you're not living life.
Yeah.
Because they're part of your life every day.
Yep.
So if you see them as something that is sort of not,
And that's perspective.
yeah, absolutely.
So that's a whole different thing. But like doing the dishes,
Mm-hmm.
I can put myself in a headspace when I like, but doing dishes, I do not want to do dishes.
Yeah.
Once I'm doing the dishes, I can get myself past that, I'm doing the dishes sort of bit. And it's just a task.
I think I always, this is just kind of random, but I always focus on the fact that it'll feel good when it's done.
Yeah.
But I also have come across the concept of, how it can be such a mindful process as well.
Yeah.
So it's just like I said, so it's, I don't know how we got to this, but it's just like changing your perception of something that, that really you'd like to say no to.
I always think perception's everything.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we have really hit some interesting thoughts about.
Actually, I think advocating for yourself is, and I honestly, I think it's the same with people pleasing as well. It's a bit of a compromise.
Yeah.
It should go both ways.
It became quite a challenge, and I think that it's until you get sort of better at it, it can take a lot of strength within you to
definitely.
To
and I
start
think
doing
especially in relationships in the workplace, you can find yourself in a position where the other half is unaware, constantly advocating for themselves, and constantly saying no to you and biting your head off whenever you try and that's a bad situation.
Yeah.
The balance needs to be readdressed.
It's a good thing to ask yourself why you're not doing it. Like,
why are you not advocating for yourself?
Because it's like it always comes down to that sort of understanding the fear, which is usually a fear.
Usually
the fear behind it usually helps me to just kind of move beyond it. Well, that's something that, and usually it's fear of other people's perception or them thinking, and then you can create stories of them thinking that you're lazy or not any help or useless, whatever words you want to put there as a story of why you're not advocating for yourself, or, you're letting people down.
Yeah.
Letting people down is quite often, I think, and it's like, well, you're letting yourself down. It's just understanding sometimes where it's coming from.
And tact goes a long way in it.
Oh, no, I'm not very tactful.
I know. When you advocate...
What do you mean I know?
When you advocate for yourself, it's important to try and do it gently. Because some people struggle with it sometimes.
I think it's important to... is it? Well, it is. It's like create an understanding of why you feel like it's not.
Well, it's like when I advocated for leaving work, not early, but before everyone else did. I advocated for myself by saying, well, I did have plans tonight. I guess I'm not doing any of them. At which point, because the relationship is a good balance, the manager said, well, hang on, what were you? You're going out. Well, you can go. Yeah,
though that was still passive aggressive. Guess I'm not doing them. So I don't know how tactful that was.
Well, the one that it gave the option to say, yeah, that sucks, but
yeah, I suppose
we're going to be here all night.
I think it's like, it's just done respectfully.
Yes,
I think that's the important thing. Like, the way you say it, and the problem is when you don't advocate for yourself and then you get to this point where you really angrily want to say no, it tends to come out in quite an aggressive, unhelpful manner that really gets everyone's back up. So it's just like, doing it in a respectful way and just like almost like, I understand that you need me to do this, but
this is where I'm
at, and is there any way we can do this differently? Or, 100%. It's just kind of, it's like not just coming out with no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, that's great. You are advocating for yourself, but I feel like that's not going to help anyone. That's
You're missing the balance. You're missing the...
Yeah.
What's the word?
Compromise?
Compromise. Thank you.
I think you just... Yeah. And I think that's a part of it too, is how you say it. And it's not like trying to let them down gently. It's trying to allow people to understand your feelings. Because if you've not been advocating for yourself for a long time and then you suddenly turn around and go, hey, then it can really shock people and unless they understand.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's really hard because it's like you don't need everyone to understand your story to keep, No,
you don't.
But in situations where you are...
Where you're being asked to do something, you need the other person to understand why you can't or are hesitant to do it.
Yeah, why you're struggling with it, really.
And like of your example with the go and move that machine and go and do that with it, it would be fine to say, hang on, I've never driven that, I'm not quite sure, I'm not really confident, And then they might come back with, okay, that's great, here, I'll show you how to do it. And then you can go and do it.
And then you can see if you want to do it. Yeah, it's almost like there's that. It's just like... So it's an advocating for yourself doesn't necessarily mean you need to say no. It just may mean... Change
the parameters.
Yeah. It's like, I need more help with this before I can do it. I don't understand what you're asking of me. And it comes down to, and I think actually we should probably do a podcast on it, it's communication. And I think everyone struggles to communicate sometimes and we struggle to say what we mean.
Yes, and the way people say things is different. Like you can get 10 people together and get them to say the same command or same thing, whatever. They will all say it differently.
Yeah.
And if you listen to all of them, you might not be sure that they're all talking about the same thing.
And it's really interesting because it'll, the way, we really should just say this, but it's like the way people communicate will be effective for some people and not effective for other people, and it's a whole other, we speak the same language, but we don't speak the same language.
You end up, especially with people that you click with well, you end up speaking sort of a shorthand.
Yeah.
And if you've spent a lot of time together, you know what the other person's saying, you know how they're going to finish, you know what they're thinking.
Yeah.
That's me and you. But even me and my manager, we quite often will say half things and we know what the other one, and then we'll do that. And I know the third party in our workforce is quite often like, what? Or comes out and thinks we're doing something completely. I was like, no, we were just talking about it. She's like, no, you weren't. You were talking about. I was like, well, no, but we were meaning this and that, and we meant this when we said that, and So
it's really interesting. And the other side of advocacy is how you're communicating.
Yeah, communication is definitely an interesting topic.
Well, we'll leave it there.
I think we'd better, otherwise we'll just keep going.
I know. Well, thank you very much.